I want to teach about the idea of love and connection being on a continuum, uh, perhaps being polarities with each other. So not these are opposite of each other, but that the way we do love and connection can be at opposite poles. One end is the idea of over involvement. That's the relationship where you just sort of merge into the other person. You're so close, it's hard to tell one from another, or you don't get this person off your mind very often, and you tend to needs and wants and interests, and you're just over involved. And then the other end is uninvolved. Now we have people that we're not much involved with, like people that we walk by on the street or see in the grocery or something like that. I'm not talking about those kind of people. I'm talking about relationships that may be family or friends, and you think of it as an ongoing relationship and you want it to be, or at least they want it to be, an ongoing relationship, but you're uninvolved. And there are some different words that we can use to describe these, and I think that could be helpful for us to use those and look at the different things that they mean. One for over involvement is codependent. So many of us know what codependent means, but in case you don't, codependent means you're likely involved with a person who is dependent on something, perhaps drugs and alcohol. And so you're in this relationship where you try to clean up their messes, and you're very connected in unhealthy ways. So you're over involved. You could be codependent with someone that's not an addict, or they're perhaps addicted to something that's unusual, but just a strong personality, the kind of person that sort of demands your attention and connection, or perhaps the person doing these behaviors, being over involved, being codependent, could be choosing by their nature or by their habits to do more than they need to be doing, to be connected more than they need to be connected. That would be codependent, it would be over involved. Now, on the other end, the uninvolved, you could be apathetic about. So being apathetic would be just don't care very much, perhaps don't care at all about this other person and what they're doing. So you can see how these are polarities, these are opposites. They're on a continuum that I've found helpful over the years as I've talked to clients and I've talked to counselors and ministers about how this uh, making connection with people and loving people, how do we play it out? How do we play it out in healthy ways? How can we relate to people when we're connected enough and not connected too much? The reason that I think this is another reason I think this is really useful is that uh, people, many people in an unhealthy way have been codependent or over involved, and when that became too much, they switch completely to the other end and become uninvolved and apathetic. And and so there's this bouncing back and forth between these extremes because this is an extreme end This is another extreme end if you're trying to be in a relationship with someone. So what they move to over here, another word for this would be cut off. And there are occasions when we need to cut off from someone because being with them is harmful. They're abusive. We need to cut off from them to not be further abused. But there are times when cutoff occurs because I just don't know how to do anything other than be too involved, too enmeshed, which could be another word over here. So I'm so involved with this person, I'm so enmeshed with them, and then something happens and I get frustrated or hurt, and I bounce all the way over here into cutoff. And this can happen for a lot of different reasons. It can happen because the person tends to live in this sort of way, or it can happen because the person you're in a relationship with is demanding this kind of behavior. And it could also be there are times when you feel cut off because the person you're trying to relate to doesn't want to have anything to do with you. They've cut off from you. Sometimes this over-involvement territory occurs because of our values. Christian values tend to teach sacrifice. I think other religions teach sacrifice. Your personal values may be if I love somebody, I'm willing to give myself for them. And so we try to do that. We work in a way that's just sacrificial, and another word there for that is sacrificial. And if you are a server and you care for people, you like being involved with people, then you could be proud of being sacrificial. That could be a badge of honor. But it's also a place to get hurt if you sacrifice only and you sacrifice all the time. So if you think about a balanced person and what they try to do with their life, Jesus, for example, I think others could be in that same balance, perhaps not to the degree, but that there was sacrifice and there was strength also. And the strength of knowing who you are, what you want, and what you stand for. I really like the example of the movie The Runaway Bride. In that movie, Julia Roberts is a character that gets engaged to several different men and doesn't marry any of them. And then this reporter comes to town to figure out, like, what in the world was going on with this woman? The story had gotten out. It's an interesting story he's going to write about. He interviews all the men and finds out they all like their eggs cooked in different ways. And he asks them, what did she like when she was going to get married to you? Well, she liked eggs the same way I did. And there were other things that each of them had certain interests and needs and things they got involved in. She wanted to do all of what they wanted because she didn't know what she wanted. She didn't know the kinds of eggs that she liked, how she liked it cooked. She didn't know anything she liked. So if you struggle sometimes to know what you want and what you like, somebody says, what do you want? Well, I don't know, whatever you want. No problem. It might be a sign that you're in this territory, that you tend to relate to people in that over-involved, codependent kind of way. It gets thrown around real easily today, and it shouldn't be thought of as like an incurable disease. The reason I like this continuum or this polarity idea is that if it's just a polarity, then there's only two ends. But the truth is, being healthy and relating to people, I think, is somewhere here in the middle. That there are times when we're really highly involved with someone, and that's what the relationship needs. That's what we need, and that's what that person needs. There are other times when we are a lot less involved with them, And that's what the relationship needs. But it isn't this range all the way to the end, all the way to the extreme, either too much or nothing at all. It's staying engaged in a way that looks something like here in a range in the middle. Perhaps over closer to this end, if you are a person who wants to give yourself to the other and you have an interest in being caring and sacrificial, then you move this way, but you don't lose yourself. Another example I've always loved is the old practice in weddings where the at the beginning of the wedding, the two mothers, one at a time, would each go down an aisle and light a single candle and then go back to the back of the church or the space. And then during the ceremony, there would be this candelabra with just 3 candles on it. And 2 of them would already be lit because one of them was lit by one mother, the mother of the bride. The other one was lit by the mother of the groom. And those candles represented, they were born. They came into the world. And so when during the ceremony, the bride and groom would take candles and merge them, their flame together, and light the center candle. And the minister, the officiant, would say, "And now the two have become one, and something new is created. This marriage is created, greater than the sum of its parts from the two of you." And what I don't like is when they blow out their candles and they put them back and there's only this one candle lit in the center. Well, it's true that in a relationship like marriage, something new happens and the persons do become something special together. There's more than just the two of them alone. But they don't die because they get married. They don't lose their ideas, opinions, and all that sort of thing. If they do, they're living over here. They're enmeshed, they're completely sacrificial, they're codependent, they're over-involved. But you can be very sacrificial and loving and involved, but in this space more in the middle. Rather than being all the way cut off because you don't want to get too close or completely enmeshed, you can live in this range according to the needs of the relationship. Let's say at a given time, one is in an accident and they're laid up and they need a lot of extra care. Well, then you would move way over here toward the highly involved because that person is dependent during that time. But then, as they got better and better, you would move back and give them space. When you think about having children, and as they grow older, and they may get into their young adult years and perhaps still live in your house or perhaps just be struggling, you want to help them, but you don't want to completely make them dependent on you, or they may be dependent for life. So there's a need to actually back off in order to be loving in that time. So this moving back and forth according to the needs of the relationship, I think this is the formula for how to have love and connection in a healthy way. Now, I would love to hear if you found this helpful. I think it's been helpful over the years, but maybe you have some comments about it, thoughts. Share it with others if you find it helpful. And thank you for your time.